We often like to think that we know all there is to know about our planet, though in reality we could not be further from the truth, especially when it comes to our oceans. We have explored just 5% of the ocean, with everything else out there remaining a mystery, from animals and plants to the structures and shipwrecks. So it should come as no surprise that many of our most interesting discoveries and revelations over the past decade have been found below surface level, under the water. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 strange underwater discoveries. Huge Japanese earthquake cracked open the seafloor. We are all familiar with the devastation of natural disasters that earthquakes can bring. And while some of the awful consequences play out immediately after, as people search for housing and safety, others can go unnoticed and fly under the radar for months. This is exactly what happened in 2011. The Tohoku earthquake and tsunami wreaked havoc, resulting in the loss of over 18,000 people, thousands of whom were never found. Figures released in 2021 report 19,747 fatalities, 242 injured, and a further 2,556 people as missing. Tohoku was the 4th most powerful earthquake recorded since 1900, when modern record-keeping systems were put into place. Despite all these tragedies, some details and consequences of the event were still being uncovered in the December of the same year, 8 months after the initial incident. A December 2011 study believes that the Tohoku earthquake may have opened fissures on the floor of the ocean bed reaching widths as large as 6 feet. Takashi Tsuji, a researcher from Kyoto University based in Japan, explained that there are fissures that line the seafloor where there used to be clam beds. The fissures, when added to the seismic research already taking place, tell the story of 2011, how the crust surrounding the epicenter of the earthquake cracked and grew. These fissures on the seafloor were found when manned submersibles took to examining, analyzing, and otherwise playing detective along the seafloor following the disaster. Tsuji and the rest of his team were uniquely positioned to talk about this event and draw comparisons of how the earthquake affected the seafloor, thanks to some prior research they had gathered. Before that fateful day in March 2011, this research team had gathered photographs and videos of the seafloor from the continental side of the Japan Trench. These photographs therefore clearly encompassed the area where the crust would crack from the ensuing tsunami. The stark differences between the evidence collected before and after makes the impact of the Tohoku earthquake abundantly clear. The footage and data collected shows a peaceful seafloor interrupted only every now and then by clam beds. The after photos, however, are not quite so lovely, and instead of showing us clam beds and serenity, they paint a picture of destruction with clear evidence of the forces that had been released. Suzy said that between 10,500 feet and 17,500 feet below the surface level, there were fissures from the earthquake open in quote many places. While it has been determined that they ranged from 3 to 6 feet long, researchers are yet to successfully find a method that will allow us to calculate and measure the depth of the fissures. Between the seismic surveys of the seafloor and their eagle-eyed observations, the researchers at Kyoto University have revealed a number of complex areas to study. It appears that the zone containing the continental crust by the coast of Japan had been forced underneath the Pacific tectonic plate. This then caused a tearing, an estimated 12 miles beneath the surface that was so powerful that even the seafloor tore open. This is believed to be the series of events that prompted that fateful tsunami. The long-term result of this in terms of the seafloor is that the crust stretched horizontally, not just outwardly, scarring the seafloor with gaping fissures. Such horrendous events in any natural disaster are terrifying and make a tragedy that will be forever marked into our history. We can only hope now to gain more understanding of why these awful events occur. The world's longest underwater cave has been found in Mexico. Sometimes being able to find the missing piece to confirm theories in ongoing research is more exciting than the new ideas themselves. It is so exciting to see when research confirms ideas and speculations, though is often discussed much less. This is true of the 2018 research in which the longest underwater cave was found, even though we had inklings it was already there. Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula has been found to be home to a network of caves, forming the world's longest underwater cave system right below the surface where the Mayans once famously lived. It has been long suspected that the Sistema Sac-Actin, a labyrinth spanning 164 miles, and the Dos Ojos system, another network reaching a staggering 52 miles, could in reality be one large system with an unexplored channel connecting them. It appears that these theories are correct, resulting in an underwater cave that reaches a whopping 216 miles of space below the surface level. Before this discovery, the longest underwater cave was the Sistema Oxbelha, which is also in Mexico and reaches a huge 168 miles. This discovery was made thanks to the work put in by Gran Acuípero Maya, a project that works towards protecting the waters of the Yucatan. This research allowed for divers to investigate and eventually uncover the missing puzzle piece, namely the previously unexplored channel. Guillermo da Anda, the director of Gran Acuípero Maya and an underwater archaeologist, has described the finding as amazing, before going on to explain that knowing more about these underwater caves will tell us more about the Maya people. He stated, "It allows us to appreciate much more clearly how the rituals, the pilgrimage, and ultimately the great pre-Hispanic settlements that we know emerged." One example of this research highlighting more information about the Maya civilization is the discovery of cenotes. These were effectively sinkholes that were viewed as holy sites, with the Mayans thinking they were portals to the gods. At the bottom of these sinkholes, we have been able to find a number of religious objects and even human skeletons. This has led to theories that the Maya could have used human sacrifice as part of their religious practices. This hidden underwater cave has been known to house hidden twists and turns before too, and it will undoubtedly be not too long before even more is uncovered about the Maya society thanks to these caves. Ancient shipwreck is now protected by underwater AI robots. The way our technology has progressed over the years is truly inspiring. Plenty of things we thought would forever stay confined to our comic books and sci-fi films are in fact becoming a reality. While we may not have the hoverboards and the mind-blowing inventions movies like Back to the Future promised us, we do have a strange and progressive array of technology in all sorts of disciplines and fields of work, including now underwater archaeology. An ancient shipwreck just off the island of Alonissos, Greece, has recently gained some company. In August 2020, remotely operated artificial intelligence, or AI robots, took to the waters and are forever changing the field of archaeology. One of the most valuable things we have as humans is our knowledge of the past. Past civilizations, past buildings, past events. Our history is precious. This places incredibly high stakes on archaeological work. One wrong move can tear down so much evidence and history, and when this work is all underwater, the task becomes even more difficult, though it seems that officials hope AI robots could change the game. This shipwreck holds vital archaeological information. The 5th century BC wooden ship sank by the Greek island Alonissos. It still contains today thousands of clay amphory jugs used for trade across and throughout the Mediterranean. We now have cameras monitoring the shipwreck constantly, with image recognition software set up to alert professionals if there is any danger that damage may occur. George Papalambou, an assistant professor of power propulsion at the National Technical University of Athens, said that this AI technology aims to replicate human eyes. He said that this aim is to determine an object which passes in front of us. He continued describing the site as one of the most beautiful ancient wrecks in the world. The monitoring system functions by solar power and is fit with specialist technology. Luminosity-triggered lens wipers that will remove debris, preventing the view from being obscured. The hope is that cameras like these will eventually make their way into more underwater sites, acting as models for divers and making the research more accessible. There have even been whispers of a series of underwater museums. This shipwreck offers us such a great deal of information surrounding Greek culture, from the trading to the sailing patterns to the construction of jugs and other materials. This ship gives us an insight into Athenian culture at such a key point in history. It is hoped that we can find out more cultural, religious, and philosophical viewpoints within this crashed ship, and this AI monitoring system just might be the way to do so. There is so much that is left unknown and untouched in our oceans, so even as we find more and more, We have many lifetimes and generations of underwater discoveries yet to come. But what do you make of these watery discoveries? Elon Musk has said that a bunch of people will probably pass away during SpaceX's early missions to Mars. Elon was talking with the founder of the X Prize Foundation when he made the comments. Elon, along with officials at SpaceX, have said they plan to get humans on the Red Planet by the year 2026, with them saying that this is several years before NASA. Elon said the following: "Going to Mars reads like that advert for Shackleton going to the Antarctic. You know, it's dangerous. It's uncomfortable and it's going to be a long journey. You might not come back alive, but it is a glorious adventure and it will be an amazing experience. Yeah, honestly, a bunch of people probably die in the beginning. It's tough going over there." End quote. He went on to say the following after the successful year SpaceX has had. "For the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth, it's been possible to extend life beyond Earth and make life multiplanetary. Humanity is the agent of life, and we have an obligation to ensure the creatures of Earth continue. Even if there is a calamity on Earth, whether it's man-made or a natural calamity, if you look at the fossil record, there are many mass extinctions. It's about ensuring we pass that threshold, where it's self-sustaining if some calamity prevents the ships from going there. What comes first? A self-sustaining city on Mars or World War III? It will be a fun and a great adventure, but it will not be a luxurious thing to start." End quote. He's currently working with experts and astrophysicists that are in the process of devising new ways to replenish the Martian atmosphere. Not only that, but they also plan to repair the planet's ecosystem to make it sustainable for human life. They hope to have achieved this by 2030. The idea of colonizing Mars is an interesting one. It's definitely been in our scope for a while now, but some argue that the missions will be pointless, saying it's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars to put humans on Mars. So why don't we use that money to help people on Earth? It's fair to say that our planet has many problems, a lot of which could be solved with money. Interestingly, though, the late Professor Hawking explained why we need to colonize other planets, saying that it's overwhelmingly known that CO2 emissions, though originally a major factor in the issue of climate change, is not alone as an acting greenhouse gas. In fact, natural water vapors in methane is a far more pressing issue regarding climate change. This is due to the fact that as temperatures have increased on the planet, this has caused more water from the ocean to form, which in turn creates more heat and more vapors, causing a snowball effect on greenhouse gases. Additionally, the agriculture industry is responsible for the majority of methane produced via the large population of cows. There are over 1 billion cows constantly digesting and releasing methane into the air that is responsible for more trapped heat compared to CO2 emissions by an additional 18%. Now, many people just assume that by reducing their emissions, we can stop the global warming issue altogether. But this is far from the truth. Many climate change experts compare the analogy to that of a car speeding towards a canyon. Reducing the speed will help to buy more time, but until the speed is zero, we're still racing towards the end. Even if the emissions are dropped by 99%, given the fact that water vapors in the atmosphere are growing each year, the situation of our planet will continue to decline as well. Considering a 100% reduction of fossil fuels, including methane caused by cows and CO2 caused by industry, seems to be an absolute impossibility. Efforts to prevent global warming seem fruitless. Within the next 100 years, the damage could be so bad that many plants using agriculture will become completely extinct. Many experts have said this is one of those situations where, although we can help our Earth, the damage has been done, and we need to look for other ways to sustain ourselves, with some saying that humans could eventually become in the future a spacefaring species, traveling from planet to planet and using its resources to sustain us. Quite possibly one of the most thought-provoking arguments made by Dr. Stephen Hawking was his claims made about the probability of events that could spell disaster for the whole of humanity. By his calculations regarding the overall probability of the Earth facing a cataclysmic event at a large enough scale to cause human extinction, Dr. Stephen Hawking stated it would take as little as 100 years before humans would be unable to inhabit our planet Earth any further. The cause for such calculations he regarded were due to several factors that most people never even took into consideration. Not only is climate change and global warming an important issue that should be addressed, but by his calculations, there is no possible way to overcome the issue regardless of any form of advancement. As dark and disturbing as Dr. Stephen Hawking's predictions of doom and extinction may be, the late research scientists also seem to have a tremendous amount of optimism relative to the coming ages of technological advancements and exploration. Dr. Stephen Hawking argued that if such an extinction-level event can be overcome, not only will humanity become far more united in its overall pursuits, but it will be a space-thrown species with self-resilience, renewable resources, and technological innovations that will have dwarfed all past human creations. Dr. Stephen Hawking most notably refers to us as planetary colonizers and makes the overall suggestion that not only will Earth be our home, but many of the other celestial bodies in the solar system may find themselves colonized equally as well. The Dyatlov Pass incident is one of the most well-known mysteries. It's been featured in various TV shows and has been covered various times. The most recent news to come from this region, though, is that a group of tourists have recently vanished, and this was after they researched the incident and wanted to check out the area for themselves. The majority of tourists were from Moscow, and it said the group were fascinated by the events that unfolded on the mountain. It was this curiosity that made them plan a trip to the Ural Mountains. Officials started to worry, though, as the team should have checked back in by the 10th of February, but they failed to do so. One official said the following: "They have not returned yet and there's no contact with them." End quote. Officials expressed more concern when they noticed that the group had failed to register their movements in the area. This is normally done by telling officials in the region what you plan on doing and why you plan on going. According to the Ministry of Emergency Situations, they have said that several groups have signed up, but this group had failed to do so. Russian officials then attempted to track down the group, and Russian media said that a day after they went missing, they were successfully found. The group said they had encountered bad weather on the mountain, and this stopped them from being able to check in. Something to note, though, is that these reports are limited, causing some to say that perhaps other groups suffered a similar fate to those in 1959. In many people's eyes, the Dyatlov Pass incident has remained a mystery, but now scientists from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology have said they finally closed the case on what happened. The Swiss Federal Institute of Technology used state-of-the-art technology and created computer models to prove their theory. Scientists said that what actually happened was an unusual type of delayed avalanche. For those unaware, the Dyatlov Pass incident happened back in 1959. At the time, the Soviet Union was still hidden behind the Iron Curtain that blocked all information from effectively getting out into the media, or even the rest of the world. During this era, a mysterious incident had occurred that still inspires fear and curiosity in the modern day. Known as the Dyatlov Pass incident, Nansky hikers went up into the northern Ural Mountains between the 1st and 2nd of February in the hopes of conquering the area that was feared by the locals due to superstitions and strange rumors. These hikers would hope that, in exploring the region, they would put to rest any worries the locals had, and hoped that by doing this it would pave the way for new hikers to visit the area and enjoy the scenic beauty of the region. Unfortunately, this decision would lead to the death of the 9 highly trained and experienced hikers and would solidify the superstitions of the area. On the 26th of February, a rescue team had discovered the group's abandoned and badly damaged tent that had been established on the slums. The sight seemed perplexing, as it became apparent that the tent was cut open from the inside, as if the group had begun panicking and cut through the tent in an effort to get away from something that was attacking them. The bodies of each of the individuals in the group were found in a nearby ravine, and this was after following their tracks in the snow, which only led to more mysteries as the majority of the bodies recovered were dressed only in their underwear, as if they ran out into the darkness of the snow without first getting dressed, and then presumably froze to death. As the investigation continued and the bodies of the deceased were put under examination, the theory of hypothermia soon came into question. Medical examiners discovered that each person suffered from internal injuries, commonly seen in a car crash, or after a massive amount of pressure and force comes into striking contact with a person. This led many to believe that perhaps the individuals were attacked by a non-human entity, capable of causing such terrible force and leading to their deaths. Unfortunately, this theory and others like it can never be confirmed or denied. With that being said, fast forward to the present day, and researchers from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology have said they've cracked what happened. After creating different models and scenarios, the team said that what most likely happened was the team caused a cut in the snow, and this was while they were settling down for camp. This in turn flattened a small section of the surface, which they described was a shoulder. This did this because they believed it would shield them from the elements. The scientists said though this was where they made a fatal error. Creating the shoulder led to it creating an avalanche, the thing they said eventually caused their demise. When questioned about the hikers and how they were found in unusual places, and even with certain body parts removed, they said that this was normal. And this is usually seen when a slab avalanche hits. Professor Alexander Puzrin, one of the lead researchers at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, said that the cut snow and an unusual weather event known as katabatic winds was enough to trigger the events that unfolded. Katabatic winds carry strong air down a slope, which in turn helps it carry snow. The professor said the following: the katabatic wind probably drifted the snow and allowed an extra load to build up slowly. At a certain point, a crack would have formed and propagated, causing the snow slab to release. Co-author Dr. Johann Geim said the following: we used data on snow friction and local topography to prove a small slab avalanche could occur on a gentle slope, leaving few traces behind. The mountain where the hikers were is notorious for strange happenings and for being hazardous. In fact, the mountain's name means don't go there in the language of the Mansi. Scientists have said the case can now be laid to rest and that the hikers were unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time. Although constantly on show, the White House is one of the most protected places on the planet. The true extent of the protection at the White House, though, has never been disclosed. While Secret Service members have given details about how it protects the building, along with the president, they've said that there's still many things that the general public are not aware of. Service members have said that it's near impossible to take over the building, saying that it has some of the best tech on the planet and that things like windows are near impossible to get into. Officials have said the building is under constant surveillance and they are confident that no one will be breaking in anytime soon. So what happens when advanced tech makes its way towards the building? This is exactly what happened back in 2010, when a former White House and Air Force engineer captured a mysterious craft hovering above the building. Although most believe that UFOs won't harm us, and point to the countless interactions people have had with them, from a security point of view, we have no way of stopping these things getting in secure locations. With high officials saying that they easily get into restricted airspace, and that when we send out our jets to investigate, they are easily able to outmaneuver them. With some former pilots even going on to say this like they're toying with them. Mr. Allen, though, made the bold claims that these crafts are actually working with the U.S. government. Mr. Allen said the following about the photograph: I have photographs of an extraterrestrial craft coming into land, and this is under or around the White House. On July 20th, 2010 at 3 in the morning, in Washington, D.C., approximately 1 mile southeast of the White House, photographed a slow-moving, hyperdimensional extraterrestrial aircraft. I then watched the UFO fire a ray of light or directed energy beam in the vicinity of the White House. End quote. Mr. Allen goes on to detail this isn't the first time he's encountered UFOs, saying that he grew up on U.S. military bases and now resides in Washington, D.C. He said that when he was young, he was visited by a group of 4 to 5 great extraterrestrials in silver spacesuits and said that these mysterious beings went on to implant him with a device. He then explains that the strange device has gone undetected for years, but said that he received signals in his mind that tell him to go to certain places across the United States, and when he does, he said he always sees a UFO. He said that he thinks these are the same crafts that were seen above Washington back in 1952. Many people will report that if aliens truly existed, then these extraterrestrials and visitors from another planet would quickly fly to the leaders of our world and confront them with their concerns and agendas. Depictions from old science fiction movies of the early 1900s showcases this thought more than others, with props of unidentified flying objects landing on the White House lawn, filled with extraterrestrials attempting to approach the leaders of the free world. However, what many are not actually aware of is that back in 1952 this very much proved to be the case. Later referred to by Project Blue Book specialists as the invasion of Washington, D.C. for roughly 8 consecutive days from July 19 to July 27, most publicized sightings of UFOs took place over the nation's capital. Not only were there a tidal wave of reports that flooded in from the general population, as outlined by UFO historians and alien investigators, but the report consisted of high officials, members of the military and Air Force. One of these reports took place at 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19th from a man by the name of Edward Nugent. Mr. Nugent was an air traffic controller at the Washington National Airport and detected 7 objects on his radar moving at speeds, flight patterns and directions that no known human craft could have produced at the time. Nugent later wrote the following: "We knew immediately that a very strange situation existed. Their movements were completely radical compared to those of ordinary crafts." End quote. This was merely the first report out of countless of hundreds of sightings that took place during that time. This later caused a climax by the President Harry Truman, who ordered the Air Force to investigate and provide an explanation for the wave of sightings and odd radar information data. This further led to the involvement of the Central Intelligence Agency that worked with the Office of Scientific Intelligence and the Office of Current Intelligence to lead their own investigations into the matter. This would lead to the creation of a supposed alien organization branch within the Central Intelligence Agency that specifically handled such investigations. Given the credibility of the witness reports, the information received by the air traffic controllers and radar data specialists, and further investigations led by the Central, the existence of extraterrestrial involvement seems certain. Robert Hastings gave a speech at Washington, D.C., in which he said the following: "The witnesses have described this craft as being in the shape of a disc or cylindrical shaped. In 1966, according to launch officer David Shaw, his missiles were temporarily activated. Just as his security guard reported a bright light moving from missile to missile." End quote. Mr. Robert Hastings' speech was not concerned with the proof of extraterrestrial life, nor the political and scientific implications of the findings. His number one concern was surrounding one issue and one issue only: national security. Researchers have said that these crafts seem to have an interest in our weapons and have even been observed deactivating them. It's only been in recent years that we're now starting to understand how frequent these crafts visited restricted regions. Pilots have reported it's not uncommon for them to see these crafts while on routine flights, and that when they do, they're usually told not to talk about them. However, some now think a shift is happening, and that soon we may be told the truth about what's going on. While others aren't so excited, and have said that hundreds of millions has been spent on disinformation, and that it's unlikely that hyper-officials will release anything of interest. So what do you make of this mysterious photo? And why do you think we're not able to catch up to these things in modern-day jazz? We see a whole host of interesting and strange discoveries with each passing day. As science constantly advances and researchers continue to draw closer to the answers they may be looking for, our world becomes a little more peculiar and a little more fascinating as we begin to understand more about it. From the busiest cities to the most remote continents, there is an abundance of research opportunities. Sometimes the most scientifically active places are the ones you may least expect. So today we will be taking a look at 3 interesting discoveries from tucked-away locations. Substance found in Antarctic ice may solve a Martian mystery. Deep within an ice core from Antarctica, scientists discovered a mineral that is commonly found on the planet Mars. Researchers are ecstatic as it reveals a little bit more about Mars' history and its similarities with Earth. The mineral, known as jarosite, is a brittle yellow-brown substance forged when dust gets trapped in early ice deposits. The research team was not expecting to find jarosite during their expedition. Instead, they were looking for records of Ice Age cycles. By taking a 16-20-meter-long ice core, The researchers would examine the minerals and see detailed layers of the Earth's history within the past few thousand years. They did not expect to find dust deep in the core. The team measured how it absorbed X-rays and examined them under electron microscopes to confirm the mineral's identity. The NASA Opportunity rover first found jarosite on Mars in 2004. The rover discovered the mineral because it had driven over finely ground layers of it. It was a groundbreaking discovery as jarosite needs iron, potassium, sulfate, acidic conditions, and water to form. The planet is covered in thick deposits of jarosite, revealing just how crucial glaciers were in forming its valleys and land. The leading theory is that Mars was once covered in massive ice deposits billions of years ago. Dust accumulated under the ice sheets and eventually transformed into jarosite. The dust found in the Antarctic ice core was cracked and smoothed, revealing it had been formed and eroded from chemicals while in the ice. This suggests that the jarosite found on Mars had been created in the same way, providing a window into the planet's water-limited and acidic weathering. Geologists explain that even though only tiny jarosite particles were found in Antarctica's ice core, it is still a crucial discovery. The mineral is created from dust, which Antarctica only receives a small amount from the other continents. Mars, on the other hand, is full of dust, encouraging the formation of jarosite. Researchers want to investigate further whether Mars' ancient glaciers incited the creation of other minerals as well, contributing to the planet's entire chemical makeup. They just never expected the deep ice in Antarctica to be the most crucial link to the Martian environment. We are now one step closer to understanding Mars' chemical makeup and formation process. LIGO sees its biggest black hole crash yet. Approximately 7 billion years ago, two large black holes collided to form a new massive black hole. To date, this collision still stands as the largest to have ever been detected. And the black hole that it formed is still the largest that has ever been found. When it was first discovered, scientists were baffled as to how it could even exist at all. The ripples from that massive collision were picked up on the two laser interferometer gravitational wave observatory detectors in the United States and another one in Italy on May 21, 2019. These waves had been hurtling through space for billions of years. The waves were the result of the merger between two or more black holes, one of which was 85 times the mass of the Sun and the other one which is roughly 66 times the mass of the Sun. They had created a new supermassive black hole that was 142 times the mass of the Sun. The rest of the 9 times worth of Sun's matter was converted into energy after the collision, which shook the universe enough for LIGO and Virgo to detect and interpret the ripples it gave off, which allowed scientists to learn and understand how black holes as big could even exist. Nelson Christensen, a member of the Virgo collaboration, said in a statement, "This signal doesn't look much like a chirp, which is what we typically detect. It is more like something that goes bang." That bang shook our region of space for approximately 1/10 of a second, after traveling for a longer period of time than any gravitational wave that has previously been detected. After analyzing the shape of the wave, scientists were able to determine the type of black holes involved and their exact size. Until this discovery was made, black holes were thought to have fallen into two different categories: stellar mass black holes and supermassive black holes. Stellar mass black holes are known to form from collapsing stars, and typically don't get much larger than a few dozen times the mass of the Sun. Stellar mass black holes are the black holes that LIGO and Virgo have previously detected merging. Supermassive black holes are on the other end of the spectrum. These consist of masses on a much larger scale, which can be millions or billions of times that of the Sun, with a gravitational force which can grow whole galaxies around them. The Milky Way has one, as well as most other similar galaxies, although scientists aren't exactly sure about where they came from or how they formed. No merger of such a monstrous black hole has ever been detected. Gravitational wave astronomy is still a relatively new science, so it's impossible to be certain. As LIGO, Virgo, and future detectors gather more data from different events in space, further research should be able to paint a clearer picture. And it's hoped that supermassive black holes should become easier to explain in the not-too-distant future. Huge Polonia hole appears in Antarctica's sea ice. Despite being in the dead of Antarctica's sub-zero winter with frozen over oceans, Massive holes have been opening up in Antarctica's sea ice and puzzling scientists for decades. Their most recent occurrence was during the 2016 and 2017 winters, but researchers have been aware of them even in the 1970s. Now they've finally figured out why and how they exist. These holes are called polonias, which is Russian and translates to hole in the ice. They are massive, with the smallest one being roughly South Carolina's size, which covers just over 32,000 square miles. To figure out why they were forming, researchers used various creative methods to gather data on the ocean and ice. They placed floats throughout the Southern Ocean with sensors to produce a record of the climate quality and measure its variability during the winter season. Researchers even attached sensors to elephant seals, placing them on their heads to gather data on the ocean underneath the ice. These sensors help the scientists understand how the ocean water gets mixed up while below the surface, drawing the cold water down and bringing the relatively warmer water to the top. This water that rises is then hot enough to melt the ice. For these giant voids to open up in the ice, many environmental components need to come together at the right time. Surprisingly, the formation of polonias is not a gradual process. It appears without notice. Suddenly, the ice gives way and a giant hole appears in the middle of the floating ice, despite it being some meters thick. Scientists have also considered the impact that moored rise has on the formation of polonias. This massive mountain lies under the water near the holes and is large enough to intensify the water's movement, sending warm water to the surface. Despite the mountain's colossal size, proximity, and potential influence, researchers note that polonias do not occur every year. They finally figured out that violent storms play a critical role in the formation of polonias. The Southern Ocean is a dangerous area during the winter, as storms occur nearly every day and with hurricane-force gales. The strong winds attack the ice, blowing through its cracks and constantly rocking it. It agitates the water under the ice, forcing the cold water layer down and pushing the warm and saltier water up. The winds increase the water's movement, causing the ice to melt. Some winters have had the storms and wind occurring closer to the continent than others, pummeling the ice and water so much that the polonias end up forming. Scientists reveal that the amount of heat coming from the rising water is substantial and damaging. When polonias occur, they release massive amounts of hot air into the atmosphere, which then affects weather patterns worldwide. If a hole is large enough, it can even affect the tropics' rain patterns for a few years. But what do you make of these three interesting discoveries from around the world? Volcanoes fascinate many of us, but in recent years supervolcanoes have taken over the public's imagination. Geologists have been able to look into our past and see some of the damage that these natural wonders have done, and it's fair to say that they have the ability to reshape our planet. One example of this is the Toba supereruption that nearly drove humanity to extinction. Prior to this event, there was an estimated 1 million human population. After the event took place, there were only 11,000 humans left. One of the largest supervolcanoes in the world which doesn't get much attention is that of the Long Valley caldera. Scientists have said that it's of particular interest because it holds the title as being one of the largest calderas. Only recently, scientists observing the area discovered 240 cubic miles of magma sitting beneath California. Experts at the United States Geological Survey have said that you've likely heard of this supervolcano beneath Yellowstone National Park, noting that headlines about this volcano often come up, but have said that the Long Valley caldera doesn't often get mentioned, but said that their recent reading using three-dimensional, four-waveform tomography was definitely of interest, and said the further study showed them that around 25 to 30% of this 240 cubic mile of magma could be liquid. The United States Geological Survey even admitted that if the Long Valley caldera was to blow, it would be as devastating as the last Yellowstone supereruption, saying that this happened around 640,000 years ago. The team behind the study has said it's strange that you hear so little about this supervolcano, especially knowing that it has the ability to do an incredible amount of damage. The USGS team said that Yellowstone is very visual in terms of being able to see active hot springs, but the team also noted that the Long Valley also has a geothermal system and many hot springs. going on to detail that this geothermal system even powers the local power plant. Simulations have shown that if the 240 cubic miles of magma found underneath the Long Valley supervolcano were to erupt, it would eject over 800 times more material than that of Mount St. Helens, with researchers noting that Mount St. Helens took the lives of 57 people and also caused more than $1 billion worth of damage. A United States Geological Survey pamphlet also said the following. Rapid flows of glowing hot ash covered much of the east-central California, and airborne ash fell as far east as Nebraska. The Earth's surface sank more than 1 mile into the space vacated by the erupted magma. The reservoir currently contains enough melt to support another supereruption, comparable in size to its last eruption. Geologists published a study in the Geoscience World, saying the following. Ongoing uplifts suggest that new magma may have intruded into the reservoir. Despite 40 years of diverse investigations, the presence of large volumes of melt in Long Valley's magma reservoir remain unresolved. The United States Geological Survey added the following. Increased volcanic unrest, including volcanic swarms, ground deformation, and CO2 gas emissions in the Long Valley area since the 1980s, increases the chance of an eruption occurring in the near future, but scientists still lack adequate data to calculate by how much. Volcanic unrest in some other large volcanic systems has persisted for decades, or even centuries without leading to an eruption. But since volcanic unrest can escalate to an eruption quickly, in a few weeks, days, or less, the United States Geological Survey scientists are monitoring the activity closely. End quote. Scientists have said that this gradual growth is likely an influx of magma that's flowing into the magma chamber below the supervolcano, noting that is essentially filling up the area in preparation for the next supereruption. Researchers from the U.S. Geological Survey's California Volcano Observatory in Mellon Park, California revealed that they'd found a blind spot underneath the supervolcano, noting that the image, which was taken by a NASA supercomputer, revealed both solid and molten rock. The United States Geological Survey said the following on their website. The Long Valley caldera east of the central Sierra Nevada range formed as a result of the Bishop Tuff eruption, a supereruption that occurred around 760,000 years ago. Resurgent doming in the central part of the caldera occurred shortly after the caldera forming eruption. During early resurgent doming, the caldera was filled with a lake that left lakeshore traces on the caldera walls and the resurgent dome peninsula. The lake eventually drained through the Owens River Gorge. Along the caldera's ring fold, Mammoth Knolls is the youngest eruption about 100,000 years ago. In the topographic basin, Cone 2652 in the West Moat is around 33,000 years old, and dacite lava is in Northwest Moat of 40,000 to 27,000 years old. The mafic chain along the west rim is 16,000 to 17,000 years old. The caldera remains thermally active, with many hot springs and fumaroles, and has had significant deformation, seismic activity, and other unrest in recent years. Robust geothermal system inside the caldera fuels the Casa Diablo power plant, which generates enough power for 40,000 homes. The Lake Pleistocene to Holocene Monoinio craters, which cuts the northwest topographic rim in the caldera along with Mammoth Mountain on the southwest topographic rim, are west of the structural caldera and are chemically and tectonically distinct from the Long Valley magmatic system. The most recent activity in the air was around 300 years ago in Mono Lake. Both Long Valley caldera and Mammoth Mountain have experienced episodes of heightened unrest over the last few decades. So what do you make of these recent discoveries? Science and archaeology are constantly advancing, often side by side. Discovering the future and uncovering the past often go together perfectly. The better the technology for space exploits and future human development, the better the technology for unearthing ancient secrets in hopes of finding out our origins in full. The more we, as a species, look towards conquering the stars and faraway galaxies, the more we should look back at our history to see how far we've come. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 archaeological and scientific advancements. Oxyrhynchus papyri. The Oxyrhynchus papyri are a series of manuscripts giving insights into some ancient civilizations. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, two papyrologists, Bernard Pine Grenfell and Arthur Sorage Hunt, uncovered this collection of manuscripts in Egypt. As professors of papyrology, the pair research, analyze, and study ancient literature, presented and preserved as a manuscript that has been recorded papyrus. Papyrus was the sole most common writing material used within ancient civilizations, including ancient Egypt, so those who study it are aware of the society, culture, and languages of these ancient societies. Grenfell and Hunt found this extraordinary group of manuscripts nearby to Oxyrhynchus, an Egyptian city and well-established archaeological site. In fact, many suggest that Oxyrhynchus is the single most important archaeological site to have been discovered to date. More specifically, however, the pair discovered these texts in an ancient rubbish dump. Researchers have successfully dated the Oxyrhynchus papyri to the Ptolemaic and Roman Egyptian eras, ranging roughly between 32 BC until approximately 640 AD, marking the Muslim conquest of Egypt. Despite the common connotations with the word manuscript, only an estimated 10% of the Oxyrhynchus papyri are literary, with the majority being comprised of documents such as codes, registers, census returns, petitions, court records, accounts, and even private letters, as opposed to being extended pieces of written work. This is not uncommon in papyrology, with correspondence and legal archives being as significant an element as the literary work. Most of the Oxyrhynchus papyri were written in Greek, with a great deal also being produced in Egyptian using hieroglyphics, both hieratic and demotic. Some other languages seen include Latin, Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, and Pahlavi, though in decreasing percentages. This presents a grand opportunity for etymological research as well as archaeological, delving into the history and development of the ancient Greek language. Of each of these individual languages, since their initial discovery in 1898, over 5,000 of these documents have been transcribed. A momentous achievement considering this information stemmed from boxes filled with tiny fragments and pieces, mere centimeters large. Despite so much having been achieved, this is considered to have only 1 to 2% of the papyri accounted for, leaving a minimum of 500,000 manuscripts left to be prepared, transcribed, and deciphered before the final step, cataloging. Today, the Oxyrhynchus papyri are stored worldwide in respected institutions including Oxford University's Ashmolean Museum. These documents have given us a whole host of information from the written words on topics from maths to drama to religion to the practices and processes of ancient societies. Prehistoric ancestors were resistant to smoke. Researchers from the US allegedly found a genetic mutation our ancient predecessors might have possessed, which made their lungs and bodies far more resistant to the harmful effects of smoke, which aided their survival as opposed to the downfall of the Neanderthals. The aryl hydrocarbon receptor gene breaks down particular toxic gases and substances. Hydrocarbons released by burning wood, which often inhaled, can cause cancer. The gene causes the aryl hydrocarbon receptors to trigger and cleanse the chemicals from the body. Humans might have been less sensitive to the harmful effects of smoke due to an overproduction of enzymes as well, and this could have ensured our ancestors' survival. The ability to be around fires for long periods of time with little to no harm would have been a great evolutionary advantage for our species. Research shows that Neanderthals who lacked the mutation had far more respiratory issues and fertility struggles than Homo sapiens. Dr. Perdue, a researcher on the project, spoke about the theory. We prospered because of this mutation. I wouldn't say Neanderthals died out because of it, but it could have been a contributing factor. After comparing our modern human genetics to our ancestors Neanderthals and Denisovans, it showed that our ancestors and us are the only ones with such advantage-giving genetics. If these claims of such a helpful mutation are then, this would be one of the very first examples of humans evolving to environmental pollution, but it is still not fully confirmed and currently only a hypothesis. An environmental toxicologist from the University of Massachusetts, Emily Mon-Eisen, commented on the matter. It wouldn't be unexpected that being exposed to a contaminant that makes you sick would be a selective pressure on humans. You're talking about one helpful adaptation against one chemical, but there's a lot of other harmful particulates in smoke. Mon-Ison believes caution should be taken when experimenting on the matter of the mutation and testing whether or not we actually do have it, as it might cause more bad than good. Regardless, the researchers involved wholeheartedly believe in their claims. Science and technology are constantly advancing and developing. This gives us brand new ways of investigating not only the future and potential ways of improving our vast knowledge and understanding of the universe, but can shed some light on the mysteries of the past. Amazon rainforest is now contributing to climate change. The large expanse of trees and lush greenery that makes up the thick jungles of the Amazon has long been touted as our saving grace in the fight against building greenhouse gases and climate change. The receding territory lines that have fallen to civilization, forestry, and farming have long disturbed environmentalists, who are concerned with decreasing the net carbon emissions of an increasingly wasteful humankind. The Amazon rainforests are some of the most densely growing areas of land in the entire world, and all of those plants and greenery absorb a hefty amount of carbon dioxide from the air. However, new findings are revealing that humans may have finally pushed the rainforest past its breaking point, and that it now may emit more greenhouse gases than it absorbs. To come to this conclusion, scientists attempted to calculate the net greenhouse gas emissions from both the rainforest itself and the humans in the area. This is an overly complicated process that involves estimating the net emissions of methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, aerosols, and sooty black carbon that occur from human interactions in the rainforest, compared to how much of these gases the remaining rainforest can actually absorb. Ideally, the rainforest would function as a gigantic regulator for the Earth, and the net number of emissions should be negative. But the recent study has estimated that in past years, the number has switched to positive, meaning that we are producing more carbon dioxide and other harmful gases than the jungle can keep up with. Although disappointing, the findings were not really a surprise and were actually expected. The increasing presence of carbon-producing activities by humans, combined with the steadily decreasing area of actual rainforest, meant that it was only a matter of time before this point was reached. According to the report, which was compiled by a team of more than 30 prominent environmental scientists, some of the activities that contribute more heavily to this imbalance are land clearing fires, drying wetlands and compacting the soil for logging activities, cattle ranching, and regular flooding and dam building. These activities not only release vast amounts of potent methane and other harmful gases, but they also transform the entire landscape and further contribute to the disappearing jungle, as well as to changing climates and local environments. Removing the trees and altering the land so drastically changes rainfall patterns and disrupts the natural heating and cooling cycles of the rainforest and contributes even more to the general warming of the environment. The good news is that the damage is not permanent at this point and can be reversed. The researchers emphasize that the most important way to halt the detrimental effects is to stop the current deforestation of the rainforest and protect that vital jungle that does so much for our planet. The Amazon is one of the most beautiful and diverse regions of the planet, and the mysteries that lie within should be protected at any cost. But what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Asgardia is the first ever space nation, and they've been very vocal about the direction they want to take humanity. Their website reads as follows: Welcome to Asgardia, the first ever space nation, a full-fledged nation with a constitution, a flag, an anthem, embassies, currency, and sovereign territory. As a new nation and a future member of the United Nations, Asgardia is accepting new residents. End quote. So what does this all mean? Those in control of Asgard here have said they want good things to happen, namely taking humans into space. At this moment in time, they are a micronation, though notes that they've launched a satellite into orbit and hope that within the next few decades they will be traveling among the stars. Those who are part of the group often refer to themselves as Asgardians. Declare sovereignty over this space occupied by Asgardia 1, which is the name of the satellite that they sent into orbit. They hope to set up permanent living quarters on the moon by the year 2043. Dr. Igor Asherberly, founder of Asgardia, revealed earlier this year that he plans to build and supply a new module for the International Space Station, hoping that this endeavor would extend the capacity and value of the space station. Dr. Eigel said the following: to directly address this, Asgardia has proposed the provision of an Asgardia node module that would be integrated into the European part of the International Space Station. It addresses the current limitations in habitable volume and research capabilities, incorporating the much-needed additional docking ports, which would be made available to both agency and commercial customers. End quote. One thing the group has been vocal about is that of solar storms and the damage they can do to Earth, which is why they've been vocal about the fact that we need to start moving to other nearby planets and moons, noting that our moon would be a great settlement for humans. Members of Asgardia said the following: they pose a serious threat to Earth, even without the technological infrastructure of the modern age. The growth of highly sensitive and space-dependent electronic grids, signals, and networks makes the task of defending the planet from the unpredictable effects of the sun more urgent than ever. Asgardia is committed, as a community of citizens of more than 200 countries, to investing in public and scientific affairs, to researching and preparing appropriate defense mechanisms to tackle superstorms, and caring equally about all humanity as well as its citizens. Asgardia intends to build free settlements in outer space. End quote. Solar storms in the Earth's upper atmosphere are triggered by massive amounts of energy from the sun. If one of these storms is particularly powerful, it will take out entire power networks across our planet. What's worrying about this is researchers have said we're not nearly ready for an event like this, and that it would cause chaos across the entire planet. Experts estimate that if a large enough solar event was to strike Earth, it would cause over 2.3 trillion pounds or $3 trillion worth in damage. Scientists have said that the sun produced one of its most powerful flares back in 2017, and this told them that the sun was waking up and becoming more active. When the sun throws out these flares, they can have effects on satellites and other pieces of equipment. Researchers and scientists said that back on the 29th of May, a solar flare came from one of these spots, and although this one wasn't massive, the team studying the spot said that it still sent out harmful radiation into the atmosphere. The researchers labeled this one as an M-class, which in turn of solar flares is in the middle when it comes to solar strength. The team did say, though, that this could be a sign that the sun is becoming more active and that more powerful solar flares could be coming our way, noting that the sun goes through cycles and it's important that scientists understand when the sun is throwing out these flares as they can affect our communications. Asgardia is an idea that came from billionaire Russian computer scientist Dr. Eigel. It was revealed that over 500,000 people have applied to become citizens of the first space nation. Dr. Eigel said the following: Asgardia 1 will mark the beginning of a new space era, taking our citizens into space in virtual form. Asgardia 1 will contain data stored for free for up to 1.5 million Asgardians, and this will be on board the satellites. These are historic days, and your names and data will forever stay in the memory of the new space humanity, as they will be reinstalled on every new Asgardia satellite we launch. Asgardia 1 is our first small step, which we hope will lead to a giant leap forward for mankind. Members of Asgardia also said that their decisions will be made outside of Earth's politics, and notes that due to this, it will allow them to move forward much faster. Some people have been vocal about how this will work, with one person saying the following: I like the idea of this, but how will this play out in the real world? On paper it sounds great, but you still need people to make the ultimate decision of who goes to the moon and who stays on Earth. How do you make that decision? I can see this causing problems. Anything where anyone is ultimately in charge is always going to receive criticism. I still think it's an interesting concept, though. While another person said this, I don't think it's as easy as just heading out into space. It's one of the hardest places to explore and costs companies hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't think that a company can just announce that they and 500,000 people are going to head into space. I don't think it works like that. What's 500,000 people going to do once they're there? Who's going to pay for their living quarters? Who's going to pay for their food and drink? And who's going to pay for their transport there on bag? I just don't think that a mission of this magnitude is going to happen anytime soon. It would cost trillions of dollars. End quotes. So what do you make of the space kingdom of Asgardia? Do you think they'll make it to the moon? And if so, when do you think they'll achieve this by? We all know that in the 21st century, the information age, our technology continues to develop and evolve at an ever-increasing pace. These rapid advancements range from self-driving cars to the mobile phone in your back pocket. Now, though, the state-of-the-art brand-new tech is branching into more specialized use. Whether you think this brand-new technology belongs in these sectors or are a set pacifist, it is not unreasonable to have concerns about bringing near-experimental products into such dangerous professions. Have we not had enough warnings from the fallings of our favorite superheroes? Is the growing technology going to do more harm than good? So today, we will be taking a look at 3 interesting announcements where technological advancements are being incorporated into warfare and defense. The U.S. Air Force says real-life force fields are on the horizon. Whether you would rather sit back and enjoy watching The Incredibles, or if seeing the Fantastic Four on your screen is more your thing, from Violet to the Invisible Girl, our TVs have seen plenty of force fields. Though now, according to whispers from the U.S. Air Force, the ever-so-popular science fiction trope could become a reality in a future that is not so far, far away. An announcement from the Air Force Research Lab released a report in the early summer of 2021 suggesting the force field is within our reach this very century. We seem to be able to cross the threshold between our current weaponry and warfare tactics into the strange and somewhat frightening futuristic weapons we have up until now only been able to imagine. Of course, the mention of a force field was not the only aspect of the Air Force report worth discussing. Plenty of other updates and suggestions came, all discussing how the military-industrial complex plans on making the most out of directed energy weapons from here on out. The AFRL report presented the claim that the force-filled technology could be merely decades, if not just years, away from becoming a reality. And that right now we are at a tipping point in the development of weaponry, balancing the huge advancements that we can see are just around the corner, but with them out of reach enough that we can continue to develop the less revolutionary equipment we already have in use. The potential force field that we may be able to create sometime soon has been described as umbrella-like. Its purpose would, unsurprisingly, be to deflect missile attacks, localizing several directed energy weapons. In the initial phases, these weapons to make the force fields will be aided by vehicles they will be mounted to. Though in the long term, after more success and as the force field research develops, it is hoped that they can be lifted into space where a laser can attack within set radiuses. The report stated this technology would certainly mark an impressive scientific turn, though like any new research, costs could leave the concept with a question mark. While many in the department and in the field hope for this technology to come about in some form or another by 2060, we do not know how quickly these developments can take place between now and then, so predictions are currently little more than excited speculations and shocking new concepts. The current progress shows that there are a number of energy-directed weapons already under construction. It was announced earlier on in 2021 that the U.S. Army is developing what they have dubbed the world's most powerful laser. This laser should be able to use various pulses and signals to interfere with enemy signals and vaporize targets. This laser has the wonderfully catchy name of the Tactical Ultra-Short Pulse Laser for Army platforms. The hope is that this overwhelming piece of equipment will be 1 million times more powerful than existing and therefore rival laser platforms. So while we may be lacking some sci-fi elements from your favorite movies and comic books, the weird and wonderful technology is drawing nearer and nearer each day. We might not be fighting with capes and colorful tights, but the weapons, rightly or wrongly, are getting closer to those on the big screen. The U.S. tested a laser weapon that can destroy an aircraft mid-flight. In 2020, for the very first time, the U.S. Navy managed to successfully stop an aircraft while it was flying by using a directed energy weapon, in this instance a laser. In the May of 2020, a statement was released by the Navy describing the lasers as being efficient and effective ways to defend themselves against enemies' drones or small armed boats. This laser tech so far has solely referred to defense, not attack, and has successful trial runs. The Navy's Pacific Fleet understandably did not disclose where exactly this laser weapon system was tested, only that on May 16, 2020, it was tested somewhere in the Pacific. Despite the vague descriptors here, there were images and videos released that show the transport dock ship USS Portland using the high-energy class solid-state laser to take down a drone mid-air. Directed energy weapons have been under construction since the 1960s, and now they are being put to hopefully good use, though only time will tell. Directed energy weapons, the tech behind both the Navy's aircraft disabling laser and the Army's future force field, are a series of electromagnetic systems that convert chemical and electrical energy into radiated energy. This energy is then focused or directed to a specific target, allowing the target to be damaged. In this instance, neutralizing the enemy weapon. Whilst for now the hopes and aspirations of this particular directed energy laser are those of defense, who knows what this technology will be used for in the future. Robot dogs may be armed with weapons. In times of conflict, the lives of those fighting should be preserved as much as possible. With the addition of weaponry to robotic dogs, a great number of lives could be saved, inflicting the damage upon a series of complex wires and mechanics instead. Quadrupedal robots or robots with 4 legs have been relatively recent developments in the field of robotics. While many of us have heard news reports of police robot dogs and surveillance guard dogs, this takes it up to a whole new level. Of course, the 4-legged and not-so-furry friends make the ideal robots for armies. They are small and compact, quick and agile, and are able to navigate uneven terrains that robots and machines with wheels simply would not be able to hack. Now, however, these robots are fully equipped for combat as they have been fitted with firearms of their own. Vision 60 Unit, a weaponized robot dog built by the U.S. company Ghost Robotics, is all kitted out with a weapon, custom-made and attached, with the weapon coming from the small arms specialist Sword International. The weapon itself is the Spur and is designed to be a fixture you can fit to various platforms. Not only is the Spur a firearm, but this frightening weaponry is also decked out with a 30x optical zoom, a thermal camera, allowing the robot dog to aim and attack in the dark. Has a range of 1,200 meters. This is dangerous enough as it is, but it has now been fitted to a mobile robotic dog. Technology has already come under enough criticism without being attached. With the recent nature of this research word coming out in the autumn of 2021, it is yet to be determined whether Sword International, the company, or Ghost Robotics, the robotics company, are selling this terrifying duo. The U.S. military are already trialing out though we are yet to confirm any details regarding the depth of the partnership and collaboration between Ghost Robotics and Sword International. The CEO of Ghost Robotics, Jiren Parikh, says that the 325th Security Forces Squadron at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida have been the first unit in the Department of Defense to employ these robot dogs. So far, the unweaponized versions have been in use for approximately a year. They have been making their way through swampy land areas that have been deemed undesirable for human beings and vehicles. The most famous company for producing robot dogs is Boston Dynamics, and their most famous creation spot was met with some controversy. In an effort to regulate the rapidly advancing technology, Boston Dynamics has a policy against allowing their machines to become weapons, though it seems that not all manufacturers have this outlook. What do you think? Is this responsible creation, or a futile policy when you consider the huge lengths this technology has already gone to? A great deal of this technology is still in the testing and development phases. Whilst these new tips and tricks would certainly mark significant milestones in our progress as a species, being able to develop all this new tech successfully, we are still a long way from the dystopian wasteland our sci-fi novels predict we will be left with once they fall into mainstream use. Is this technology going too far? Are we employing robots, lasers, and force fields in places where they are just not needed? We will let you decide. What do you make of these technological advancements? Sub-zero temperatures can preserve even the most ancient mysteries, freezing them in time. It has been rumored that Walt Disney himself is currently frozen and waiting to be reanimated in the future. While that is an interesting theory, the following discoveries are very real and will have you wondering what other massive discoveries lie frozen in ice. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting discoveries. The body of missing climber Patrice Hievert found on Mont Blanc after 32 years. Our first chilling discovery takes place in the French Alps, where climbers would discover a mystery over 3 decades old buried beneath the snow. With a summit of over 15,000 feet, Mont Blanc is the tallest mountain in the Alps and all of Europe. Many consider the mountain to be the birthplace of modern mountaineering, explaining why nearly 30,000 climbers attempt to reach the summit each year. In July of 2014, 2 hikers set out to scale Mont Blanc, but they made a chilling discovery on their journey up the mountain. Frozen on a glacier with his ID, his equipment, and his skis was the body of Patrice Hivert, a French mountain guide trainee that had been reported missing 32 years earlier in 1982. Patrice was only 23 when he began his solo trek up the mountain with a plan to ski back down after reaching the summit. The storm had hit the range during his climb, obscuring his ascent and causing the hiker to lose his life to the mountain. His father, Gerard Hivert, had completely given up hope of ever finding his son's body. When officials came to his home 32 years after his son's passing to inform him that the body had been found, Gerard was beside himself. Felt like losing his son for a second time. Gerard told France's RTL radio, "I'm a mountain man, and I would have preferred him to stay up there. He was better on a mountain than in a coffin. He was in his element." Patrice is not the only climber to lose his life to the mountain. On average, 100 lives are lost each year trying to reach the summit. The mountain is a technical climb to an experienced hiker, but it is not considered particularly difficult. However, many inexperienced climbers and tourists are drawn to Mont Blanc by the falsely advertised scenic long walk portrayed by local guides. New female mummy, Thuja. Back in 2018, the archaeological and Egyptological community saw a gold rush of breathtaking ancient Egyptian discoveries surrounding the entire region El Asasif, which proved to be a tremendous boom to the area's local economy at the height of their tourism decline. A hive of unearthed, buried structures, complex cities long forgotten, ancient traditions, and religious artifacts of incredible value, available for anyone to see, became the archaeological centerpiece of El Asasif between 2016 to 2018. However, it was not until the end of 2018 that archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery that confirmed a long-held theory surrounding the ancient Egyptian officer known as Hori. According to archaeological researchers and leading Egyptologists, situated alongside the western bank of the Nile River, opposite to the upper dynastic southern ancient Egyptian city of Luxor, there resides a long-forgotten Theban necropolis that had been buried within the deep sands of the Egyptian desert for several thousand years. Located in El Asasif, the Theban necropolis has been at the center of decades-long investigations surrounding what are believed to have been tombs of officers of the state that date back more than 3,000 years into the past. One of the recently discovered regions of the Theban necropolis, an enclosed area known only as the TT-28 tomb, was believed to have been the personal tomb of one of the highest officers of the state more than 3,000 years ago, known only by the name Hori. Although not much is known about the ancient Egyptian officer, he was believed to have been the owner of the estate of Ammonius during the Ramesside period back in the 16th century BC, and to have been tasked with the duties of an ancient Egyptian official, handling taxes, planning and political jobs such as advising the pharaoh, overseeing religious ceremonies, and preparing bodies for the afterlife. It was back in November of 2018 that archaeologists uncovered 2 unopened sarcophagi within the TT-28 tomb and opened them up to the public for a special event to help revive local tourism. The first sarcophagus, a richly styled coffin, that was believed to have been dated all the way back to the 17th dynasty, was confirmed by Egyptologists to have housed an ancient Egyptian priest of such tremendous stature that it is understood that the man had been the lead embalming doctor for ancient Egyptian pharaohs, personally responsible for handling the bodies of kings and viziers throughout his life. The second sarcophagus, which was provided with its own special opening ceremony, revealed the mummified remains of a female resident, believed to have been dated all the way back to the 18th century dynasties, sometime around the time of the pharaohs Tutankhamun and Ramses II. Next to nothing is known about the female mummy, though speculations have arisen since the opening of the casket surrounding her possible role in the estate and the reason for her embalming. Given the fact that the Theban necropolis is closely tied to religious ceremonies and offices of the state, it is theorized that the female mummy, now referred to as Thuja, was a high priestess who oversaw many of the religious traditions of the region and played a significant role in the embalming processes. The TT-28 tomb discovery was not limited to the unearthing of 2 sarcophagi, however, and soon researchers uncovered a wide variety of artifacts that are still under study to this very day. Their finds included restored walls covered in high-quality paintings, a papyrus scroll not yet made available to the public, 2 wooden statues, 5 masks decorated with a variety of colors and paints, and over 1,000 clay faience and Widow Shabdi funerary figurines. Given the extent of the discovery, it will most likely be years before all of the artifacts can be studied, catalogued, and made available for museums to showcase to the general public. Mont Blanc climber finds 205,000 pounds worth of Indian jewels on glacier. It is estimated that the jewels inside the box were worth over 200,000 pounds. Instead of keeping the treasures, the hiker turned in the box and all of its contents. Each gem was packed into little bags with some labeled "Made in India." It was that piece of information that would help officials determine that the lost jewels had been there for nearly 50 years. Let us go back to January 1966. The jewels are on board Air India Flight 101 on their way to the Geneva airport in France. Having miscalculated the aircraft's altitude, the plane's pilot sent the Boeing 707 with its 117 passengers directly into the mountain summit. The plane left a massive crater in the mountain and was completely pulverized. Nothing could be identified and no passengers survived. Because of the time of year, any attempt to recover debris or bodies was called off because of the weather. Still to this day, pieces of debris are scattered throughout the mountain range. After delivering the box to the police, the jewels were then taken to the mayor of the local town, Chamonix, where they would be stored until the rightful owners could claim them. A local historian and acquaintance of the mayor, François Ray, speculated that the mayor and the climber had agreed to a 50-50 split of the jewels, and had no intention of getting them to their rightful owners. Under French law, if no one could make a sound claim to them during a 2-year window, they would then belong to the mayor. Ray discovered the name Isharov while going through old insurance documents from a man in London that had filed a claim for lost jewels at the time of the crash. When news of this came out, 2 separate Isharov families came forward to claim them. Both families, though unrelated, happened to be stone merchants, one from Spain and the other from Russia. It appears that neither family could claim the jewels, and it is difficult to find any more information about where they are today. There is a theory surrounding the plane crash itself. One of the 117 passengers on the Air India Flight 101 was Homi J. Barber, an Indian nuclear physicist and father of the Indian nuclear program. The theory comes from the book, Conversations with the Crow, written by journalist Gregory Douglas. The book is a transcription of the alleged phone conversations between Douglas and Robert Crowley, a former CIA officer and second-in-command to the Director of Covert Operations. Among the many pages discussing the CIA's involvement in historical events throughout American political history, there is an alleged conversation with Crowley that suggests the CIA may have been behind the plane crash. The theory suggests that the CIA wanted to sabotage the progress of the Indian nuclear program by eliminating the physicist and did so by planting suitcases with devices in the cargo of the plane. The plane crash occurred just 3 months after Babur had said India could build an atom bomb in only 18 months. This theory is purely speculation and based on the transcripts in Douglas' book. But what do you make of these interesting discoveries? As of right now, mermaids are believed to be works of fiction, but with over 90% of the oceans still unexplored, there's those that put forward the idea that they could exist in small regions. For hundreds of years, sailors have reported encountering ugly oceanic creatures. They describe them as looking human-like, but with the bottom half matching nut of a fish. Stories were soon shared, and many believe that these underwater inhabitants were genuine. Depending on who you talk to, some claim that they were good and would help humans in times of need, while others said they kept their distance and in some cases were actually evil. As mentioned though today, the scientific world has said there's no proof of these underwater creatures. But that hasn't stopped people coming forward with their own encounters. The most recent one is these photographs that have been making the rounds on social media. They were posted to a cryptid group. For those unaware, cryptids are labeled as creatures that are not recognized in the scientific world. For example, the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. The photographs do appear to show what looks like a mermaid. Various photos were taken before it jumped into the water and swam off. One of the issues with these reports, though, is that it's hard to track down a source. Some claim the photographs were taken in the Amazon rainforest, while others said they were captured somewhere in the Philippines. As of right now, not much information can be gathered about the photographs. As skeptics have pointed out, though, when it comes to mermaid photos and videos, they can easily be faked. Not everyone is of this opinion, though. Amateur researchers have claimed that early humans could have adapted to an underwater lifestyle. This has become known as the aquatic ape theory, and this is the idea that humans ventured into the oceans millions of years ago. Some theorists have put forward the idea that it's one of the reasons why we're so different from other species of apes. They claim that bipedalism was achieved by venturing into the water millions of years ago. What's interesting is that some species of monkeys show this trait while crossing shallow rivers. It allows them to keep their head above the water and also look out for predators. Humans have hairless skin when compared to other apes. We have it on our head to protect us from the sun. Meanwhile, primates such as baboons and other monkeys which live on the savanna have neither lost their hair nor developed an upright posture. This is why some people have put forward this theory. Where did we learn this, and why are we so alike, but at the same time so different from these other aims? Our brains greatly expanded at one point, and it's thought this was promoted by the protein-rich fish diet. We have a hooded nose that helps prevent water from entering the nostrils. Although these are interesting points, scientists have said it doesn't prove that mermaids once existed, and that people back then were most likely misidentifying common oceanic, for example. Manatees under certain light can take on a humanoid form. Or throughout history, there appears to be a number of strange and unexplainable phenomena centered around religious gatherings and events. Many that have studied these have found them to be impossible to explain even in the modern day. Additionally, many of these strange, mysterious religious events seem to point to the idea that perhaps our world is far stranger than we ever realized before. Over the years, many people have come forward and said that they've had a divine encounter. Whether this was an interaction with a loved one or even Jesus himself, many people believe it can happen. Those who've made these claims have said that it's changed the world for the better. Scientists tell us these visions are usually caused by dreams. The brain is very complex, and we still can't answer how exactly it works. But visions of gods are believed to be just thoughts. Recently, Padre Pio has caused a lot of controversy among believers of the Catholic faith. He's come forward in recent years and said that Christ has made contact with him, and not only that, but bad things are going to happen. He claimed that he was spoken to directly by Jesus, who told them that the end of the world was near, and that it would be brought about by natural disasters and spurred by God due to humanity's destruction of the planet. Padre Pio claimed that Jesus told him that humanity has abandoned the right path and taken those which could only reach a destination of violence and catastrophe. He said the following: "When the world was entrusted to man, it was a garden. Man has turned it into an atmosphere full of poisons. Now nothing serves to purify the house of man. A deep work is necessary, which can only come from heaven." Many who have read into this have said he seems to be taking a dig at how the modern world has turned out, suggesting that humans have damaged our planet and things need to be done to correct this. Jesus allegedly told him he's no longer able to extend divine advice to people of the world, and instead they must face whatever comes next. The priests claim that Jesus said the following to him: "Prepare to live 3 days in total darkness." These 3 days are very close, and in these days they will remain as dead without eating or drinking. Then the light will return, but many will be the men who will not see it anymore. Many people will escape scared. It will run without a goal. They will say there is salvation to the east, and people will run to the east, but it will fall on a cliff. They say that to the west there is salvation, and people will run to the west. but they will fall into a furnace. The earth will tremble and the panic will be grained. The earth is sick. The earthquake will be like a snake. They will feel it crawling everywhere, and many stones will fall and many men will perish. You are like ants, because the time will come when men will take their eyes out for a crumb of bread. Businesses will be looted, where houses will be taken and assaulted and destroyed. Paul will be the one who in the dark days will be left without a candle, without a jug of water, and without the necessary for 3 mums. However, others disagree with this, with one person saying the following: "This is typical religious fear-mongering. If you don't do this, then this will happen." It's blackmail at a global scale. I have no problem with people believing in religion, but when they say that bad things will happen if you don't believe in it, I get annoyed. Although these types of statements cause some to disagree, there are others that believe that this does happen. Another person had this to say: "I believe that Christ does show himself to some people. He does this mostly to offer advice and wisdom. When I'm feeling down, I can feel his presence strongly, and this makes me feel much better. It's great knowing there is someone there for you." Interestingly, many people have claimed that Jesus statues have performed miracles. This has caused many to travel vast distances in order to watch these once-in-a-lifetime miracles. In 2012, this statue of Jesus started to make the news, and this was because according to some it was performing a miracle. People close to the statue at the time noticed that drips of water was coming from its feet, something that many believed is a sign that Jesus himself is inside the statue, or that he's in the room. Word soon spread of the miracle, and many traveled to this location to see it for themselves. This wasn't a hoax, and there was in fact water dripping from the toes of the statue. The church, which is located in western Mumbai, was the location to be if you wanted to witness this incredible act. Interestingly, because you could see the water drip down, some thought it'd be a great idea to drink the water, perhaps thinking if they ingested the water it would heal them or even give them some kind of power. This soon started a trend where many people started to drink from the statue. This soon caught the attention of a mythbuster who was interested in the case. He was actually challenged to check out the statue to see if he could see anything that seemed out of the ordinary. When he arrived, he could see that small water droplets appeared to be coming out of the feet of the statue. He then decided it would be best to bring in someone else to help him take a look at the statue. His friend was an engineer and offered his services to try and get to the bottom of this mystery. One of the first things that stood out to the engineer was the fact that the statue was pressed up against a wall, and this suggested there could have been something else at play. After looking around the area, he was then able to find out there was a pipe that was causing the dripping. The pipe was located just behind the statue, and due to it leaking, it had caused moisture to build up in the wall. This, in turn, dripped down the statue onto Jesus' toes. Interestingly, the next discovery wouldn't make believers very happy, as it was found the pipe that was causing the drips was actually an overflow pipe from a nearby toilet. So essentially what the people were drinking was drainage water. The alleged miracle turned out to be a bit of bad plumbing. However, even after this investigation, there were those that weren't happy with the discovery and didn't want to believe what the mythbuster and engineer had found. They did have supporters though, as some Catholics came forward and said this was a case of mistaken identity. But hardcore believers did follow the man with sticks and wanted him to retract what he'd found. The case then took a strange turn when the man started to receive phone calls, saying if he didn't take back what he had found, bad things would happen. He found the strange coming from people that worshipped a higher power and would pray that we would get on with each other. Regardless, the threats continued, and the mythbuster eventually went to Finland to escape the anger grounds. Interestingly, when some people went to the location to see the statue, it's reported that it's no longer dripping water, and the whole story seems to have come down. This isn't the only reported case. There seems to be many locations across the world where this type of thing has happened. Going back a few years ago, a statue of the Virgin Mary in Argentina began to gain attention, and this was for allegedly performing a miracle. It was reported that the statue started to cry. As if that wasn't strange enough, The family who owned the statue said the Virgin Mary was crying blind. As you can imagine, this immediately attracted interest from numerous visitors, and the church soon saw a large influx of people wanting to see the statue. One local priest came forward and said that the Catholic Church will have to fully investigate the tiny statue before it can be officially declared a genuine miracle. Going on to say the following: the first thing the church will do is a scientific analysis to see if there is a natural explanation. Only then the possibility of a supernatural phenomenon is considered. As of today, scientists don't believe the claims that people are being visited by Jesus and suggest that the majority of these stories are either made up or that it's just fear-mongering. The sun is responsible for keeping our planet alive. Without it, we wouldn't be able to survive. It holds the title for being the largest celestial body in our solar system. Scientists have said that it contains more than 99% of the total mass of the solar system, with the largest planet Jupiter containing just 0.2%. This giant is responsible for holding the solar system together. If the sun wasn't there, planets and debris wouldn't stay on their path. If we didn't have the sun's massive amount of energy, life would no longer exist. Scientists have said the sun is around 110 times the diameter of Earth. This means that 1 million Earths could fit inside the sun. Although the sun is an incredible force, researchers have said there's billions of them throughout the Milky Way galaxy alone. Developed as part of the European Space Agency and NASA's HEDO Viewer project, the Solar HEDO Spherical Observatory allows anyone to view its entire library. Over the years, it's provided some incredible photographs of our sun. However, in recent times, some have noticed some strange anomalies. The most recent sighting is said to be a large, unidentified flying object. We can see what appears to be a large object that looks similar in appearance to an angel. As you can imagine, many theories have been put forward to try and explain what this is. Some have suggested it's a camera anomaly, while others believe it could be alien in nature. Theorists have also said that an intelligent race could also be using our sun as some type of portal. Strange about these discoveries is that every so often this angel-like object can be seen close to our sun. It's caused some to put forward the idea this isn't an editing error, but rather something mysterious. One individual said the following about the anomalies seen around our sun: I've been watching the Soho cameras for years and I've seen some strange things. This most recent photo, though, is one of the best to have come from the Soho, and I think it could be the real deal. For years now, these cameras have been capturing these angel-like crafts, and no one seems to know what they are. For the past 5 years, they keep reappearing at our sun and no one knows why. Others, however, are not so sure, with one person saying the following: if this was a real craft, it would be absolutely massive. No object could be that close to the sun due to the heat it gives off. So what are these objects that people are seeing? NASA has provided an official explanation on their Soho page. They said the following: ever since launch, there's been a number of people who's claimed to have seen flying saucers and other objects in Soho images. Although some of these supposed pictures of UFOs can seem quite intriguing, they've always turned out to have quite an ordinary cause when examined by. In recent days, we've been receiving so many questions and claims that we'd like to set the record straight. We've never seen anything that even suggests there's UFOs out there. In the past, we've been accused of covering up UFO evidence when we present our explanations, and of refusing to comment or clamming up when we give up on somebody who won't accept our explanations. While we don't expect to convince everybody, we hope that this page and links can provide some information for the curious who want to investigate the claims on their own. Most commonly, UFO claims are due to natural flaws or artifacts in our publicly available data. Some of the things that people are seeing are planets, cosmic rays, software glitches, and debris. Although many believe this explanation given by the space agency, there's some that have said this doesn't make any sense, and have even pointed to astronaut testimonies. Going back in 1984, cosmonauts aboard the Soviet space station Soyuz 7 experienced something they couldn't explain. The crew described the experience as starting off with a blinding light. They looked out the portholes to get a better understanding of what was going on. Being in space, this was worrying to them as they had no idea what it could have been. Shortly after this, they said the space station was surrounded by 7 giant angels. The cosmonauts said the beings stayed outside for around 10 minutes before vanishing. As you can imagine, they tried to discuss the possibilities for what they had just encountered. However, none of them could come to a logical answer. They decided that their minds were playing tricks on them. However, this argument has its flaws, as it would be very unlikely all the cosmonauts' minds would be playing the same tricks on them. And not only this, but they would all see the same hallucination. Regardless, the event was soon put to the back of their minds. The team on board were then joined by 3 more cosmonauts, and once again the station was surrounded by a bright glow. For some unknown reason, these massive angelic beings had returned to the space station, and all of the cosmonauts on board witnessed the entities. This story didn't get much coverage, and the Soviet governments were not impressed by their story and told them not to tell anyone about what they'd seen. To this day, the experience was blamed on a gas leak, which caused them all to hallucinate. Again, though, people argue whether every cosmonaut would have hallucinated the same thing. So is it just a coincidence that the anomalies being seen in these photographs are angel in shape? Some have made the connection with the 2 events and suggested that these are what the cosmonauts were seeing. So what would happen if aliens do make contact with us or happen to land on our planet? Well, according to the late Stephen Hawking, it wouldn't end well. In fact, the late scientist said on many occasions that humans should be careful about contacting aliens, and that it may not end well for us. Dr. Stephen Hawking claimed that alien contact would most likely occur within the next century, and further explained that if we encountered an alien civilization, the meeting would be similar to that of Christopher Columbus first encountering Native Americans. He further goes on to warn us about the potential disaster of trusting an alien species, and explains not only should we remain vigilant, but that an advanced race may have other motives that may be unpredictable on the short-term scale, given their technological development and superior intellect, claiming further that any intelligent alien species could never be fully trusted. This is an interesting prediction and may be the case over this next century, as developments in spacefaring technologies are being worked on and made, along with the fact that new reports of alien technologies keep surfacing. The Disclosure Project has already been responsible for the disclosure of a massive amount of government documents tied to alien investigations, and further findings have been made, including the recovery of a broken piece of alien spacecraft. That was recovered by Linda Moulton Hall, which has caught the attention of both NASA and the Department of Defense. This caused Dr. Hawking to suggest we need to invest in technology to take us to the stars. Dr. Stephen Hawking most notably refers to us as planetary colonizers, and makes the overall suggestion that not only will Earth be our home, but many other celestial bodies in the solar system may find themselves colonized equally as well. This appears to be an accurate prediction, as the advancements made by private research company SpaceX has more than propelled a modern space race in the pursuit of planetary colonization. In fact, many estimates for project deadlines put first colonies on Mars to occur in 2030, which is merely within the next 10 years. Not only this, but NASA has begun the process and paperwork as well as research necessary for long-term living in spacefaring ships, with efforts being made to replicate the famous Von Braun research station, along with the robotics and agricultural developments necessary to create a fully sustainable life support. On top of these developments that have already seen space testing and other viable research options, including partnerships at the Biosphere 2 research laboratories, NASA has already begun the processes and received funding for the development of asteroid mining, relative to the formation and creation of spacefaring ships made from asteroids floating in the asteroid belt. This means that NASA will begin launching rockets to land on asteroids that contain and use those metals as a means to develop a larger ship made from the asteroid, allowing for the formation of advanced research stations, as well as pit stops for spacefaring teams. Given the massive amount of success via SpaceX, Boeing has also decided to throw their hat in the race to colonize the red Martian surface, and has already begun the development process for creating their own rockets. So what do you guys make of these mysterious anomalies? And what do you think they are? Sometimes science needs a little bit of time to reveal something more interesting. Discoveries often exist for centuries before we stumble across them and make sense of what we have found. So today, we will be taking a look at 3 interesting discoveries that were centuries old by the time they were revealed. A human book. Reading has served as an often undervalued yet pleasurable pastime for millions of people. Books have been handed down through generations, passing on their magic and wisdom for all kinds of people to enjoy. In academia, books provide the basis of research and knowledge. From journals to stories to accounts and chronicles, books are distinctly unique in the information they can provide. Bookkeeping is considered an art by some, with especially old manuscripts and copies often bound very delicately. Sometimes the material the book is made out of, often leather and hide in older times, is more valuable than the content itself. But a long time ago, the art of bookbinding was a little more macabre. De Destiny del Home, which translates to Destinies of the Soul, has been housed at the Houghton Library at Harvard University since the early 1900s. Written by a man named Arsène Husset in 1880, the book was apparently gifted to a friend of Arséne's, a doctor named Ludovic Boulin. Dr. Boulin was a rather strange man, but like many professionals in his field during the Age of Empire, medicine was an area of research where many ghastly experiments were carried out. Boulin being given the book is not particularly impressive when isolated, but it is what he did with the book that is truly shocking. He bound the book in human skin. Thought to be taken from a young woman who had passed away in his care, Boulin placed a note within the front cover reading, "I had kept this piece of human skin taken from the back of a woman." A book about the human soul deserved to have a human covering. For reference, the book is meant to be an investigative fantasy depiction of what happens to the soul once passed. Whilst the act seems particularly grim, binding books with skin is not quite as uncommon as some may believe. At least it was not a few hundred years ago. One of the most famous examples of skin binding is that of William Burke. Burke, the Scottish man who took the lives of 16 people in the 19th century, has been immortalized rather morbidly in the cover of a small pocketbook, although how bookmakers actually got hold of his body is a misunderstood story. Some discoveries, especially those made in books, are astonishing, but none perhaps for reasons quite so dark. From witches to books to melting glaciers, our world is full of mysteries just waiting to be unearthed. Who knows, you could be the next person to stumble across something truly bizarre. Octopus are walking on shore. Octopuses are some of the most well-known sea creatures with their curious 8 tentacles, incredible intelligence, camera-like eyeballs, and slimy bodies. However, a local marine guide from Wales, upon returning from a sunset dolphin watching expedition, witnessed an octopus in a place where he never expected to see one. On dry land, he reported seeing over 24 of the creatures crawling up out of the water on the tips of their tentacles and moving onto the sand as though part of some mass migration. And soon other locals made reports of a similar nature. It is not unheard of for octopi to take a stroll outside of the water occasionally. Those that live in shallow waters near tide pools frequently use the tips of their tentacles to crawl from pool to pool in search of prey, sometimes embarking on longer stretches if they are especially unlucky in the hunt. A popular octopus at the National Aquarium of New Zealand proved his prowess as an escape artist by crawling out of his tank, across the room, down a drainage pipe, and into the sea. However, scientists are baffled as to why so many of the creatures were existing in a group to such a sandy stretch of beach, one with no tide pools or chance of finding food. They breathe through gills and can only survive out of water for very short stretches of time and must remain moist in order to be able to absorb oxygen from the water on their skin, which is why they have never been known to attempt such a long stretch out of the water. Several octopuses were discovered the next morning having died after drying out too much. Scientists are baffled as to what could cause these small, hand-sized cephalopods to behave in such a dangerous manner. It is possible that a huge change in their environment, brought on by incredibly rough seas around the time that they were spotted, local pollution, or an unusually low tide, could have disorientated the octopi enough that they mistakenly clambered onto dry land. Other theories include illness or parasitic infection, although the creatures that were discovered the next morning appeared to have been in perfect health and died from drying out rather than any infection. Alarmingly, scientists don't know what has caused these octopuses to behave in this manner, and are carefully studying the species for any clues. 13th century priest's tomb discovered in Egypt's Luxor. On Saturday, the 24th of November 2018, a tomb dating back to the 13th century was unveiled following a 5-month-long excavation. This was according to the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities. The long-term excavation project took place in Luxor, one of Egypt's most well-known cities, famously called Thebes in ancient Egypt. This particular work was performed near the River Nile's west bank. After 5 months of work, conducting a long process of carefully calculated digging and cutting, the excavation was complete, revealing the tomb of a priest and his wife. This momentous project was undertaken by an Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities mission, and the discovery it resulted in was rather impressive. The tomb that was uncovered donned scenes inside it, showcasing the priest and his family together. Khaled El-Nani referred to the remains of them during a press conference discussing the discovery as being in exceptional condition. The priest that was laid to rest within the tomb was Thor Ikretfor. The ministry informed the public that he had played a role of great importance, as he had been in charge of overlooking the mummification shrine at Luxor's Egypt Mut Temple. Alongside the colorful scenes within the tomb, there were sarcophagi of Thor Ikretfor and his wife. Completing the tomb were 1,000 Ashabdi. For the not-so-informed archaeology fans amongst us, a sarcophagus is a stone coffin which usually looks like a sculpture or holds a significant inscription. These are typically associated with ancient Egypt. Ashabdi are funerary figurines intended to serve as a magical substitute to replace their now passed-away owner if requested by the gods to complete not-so-prestigious tasks in the afterlife. Their name, whilst undertaking a number of spelling variants, is often translated to Ansara, though this is a fairly frequent topic of debate amongst archaeologists and linguists alike. Often made of blue or green glazed Egyptian faience, they typically range between 5 and 30 centimeters in height and stand within the tomb, accompanying the deceased in the afterlife. Coincidentally, a French team of archaeologists announced an entirely distinct discovery on the same day. The French Institute for Technology and the University of Strasbourg collaboratively researched and undertook work leading to the discovery of yet another preserved sarcophagus, this one belonging to a female mummy named Thuja. Excitingly, the dating of Thuja's sarcophagus has placed her during the 18th dynasty, an iconic era in Egyptian history, most notably including pharaohs such as the famous Ramses II and Tutankhamun. Not only do these exciting discoveries advance the field of archaeology, but the promotion of this research aids to improve the tourism in Egypt, a once relied on economic sector now in need of recovery. What do you make of these past and present discoveries? As questions are answered about where we came from and how our ancestors came to be in the first place, we can apply this knowledge to the future and look towards even bigger and brighter dreams and discoveries. From the simple origins of the earliest humans to the possibility of commercializing space travel for entertainment and tourism, it is amazing that such seemingly disconnected discoveries can unite in their ability to advance the knowledge and capabilities of the human race. So today we will be looking at 3 incredible discoveries and what they mean for the knowledge of our past and our dreams for the future. Scientists claims world's oldest pyramid is hidden in an Indonesian mountain. The prominent Indonesian mountain called Gunung Padang is impressive in its own right, but based on recent analysis, scientists believe that there might be even more to this incredible mountain than meets the eye. Indonesian scientists studying the area conducted extensive investigations of the insides of the mountain, with a particular focus on the strange and distinctive pyramid-like hill at its peak. Using radar, X-ray, drilling, excavations, 2D and 3D imaging, researchers analyzed the topography and underground formations of the mountain and concluded that not only did there appear to be a labyrinth of stone structures under the earth, but that this formation was likely one of the world's oldest pyramids. The structure, which scientists believe was a temple of some sort, expands far beyond the superficial pyramid of that lies hidden under the ground at the peak of Gunung Padang. The complex formation extends down several layers, stretches over 150,000 square meters, and appears to have been added to by many different civilizations over millennia. The analysis of the tests revealed that the top layer consists of stepped terraces made of basalt rocks interspersed with stone walks, paths, and courtyard-type spaces. The top layer alone is estimated to be between 3,000 and 3,500 years old. The second and third layers were predicted to be between 7,500 and 8,300 years old, with the third over 9,000 years old. Some estimates even place the third layer, which lies deeply hidden, at over 15 meters below the surface, at up to 28,000 years old. If these scientists' interpretation of the research is confirmed, it would mean that the eroding and unobtrusive earth of Gunung Padang is not actually a simple mountain, but the earth-covered remnants of an impressive and ancient pyramid complex that sits at the top of the hill and wraps around almost the entire mountain. However, there are still some that do not agree with this research and believe that the rock configurations that lie several meters below the surface, which the scientists believe to be paths and structures, are in fact just natural rock formations. The other layers have only been analyzed through techniques that attempt to peer below meters of rock and earth, and as such the conclusions reached by the researchers is viewed by some as flawed and based on an unconvincing interpretation. However, if excavations determine that the conclusions are indeed valid, the structure is incredibly unique and was likely used as a religious temple that could offer insight about what the ancient Indonesians were capable of building and give a glimpse into their culture and how they lived. The confirmed existence of such a sprawling temple under the mountain as potentially the oldest pyramid in the world would also challenge the knowledge that historians have about the technological development of the region and the values and capabilities of the ancient people who lived there. For now, however, it remains to be seen whether these awesome claims can be validated. And the researchers working on the project must conduct much more extensive analysis to verify their claims once and for all. Artificial intelligence study of human genome finds unknown human ancestor. As amazing and wonderful as the human brain is, sometimes there are things that it simply cannot tell us about ourselves without a little extra help. One of the things that scientists rely on artificial intelligence for is extensive analysis of both human and animal genomes to determine relationships and attempt to track the pattern of evolution through the millennia. Recently, one of these artificial intelligence studies discovered the presence of a strange ghost population that predated the human species that we are today. The analysis, which was performed by artificial intelligence using machine learning technology, looked at 8 of the current leading models of theorized human evolution and discovered traces of an unknown human ancestor that likely interbred with the Homo sapiens of Asia and Oceania. This mysterious population of ancestors was hidden until now because the only thing remaining to hint at its presence are small, virtually indistinguishable fragments of DNA that remain interspersed within modern human DNA, and it was not until machine learning pointed it out to us. This unidentified ghost population appears to be a descendant of interbreeding between the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. Remarkably, the 90,000-year-old fossilized remains of a girl, appearing to be the only example of the result of a first-generation mixing between a Neanderthal and a Denisovan, was discovered recently. Leading scientists do wonder whether she was a forerunner to this newly identified ghost population. The Denisovans themselves were only discovered and catalogued as a species a decade ago, making these subsequent discoveries missing pieces to a very recent puzzle. Scientists have long understood that the early humanoid species interbred with other species as they spread across the globe and encountered each other. Over time, these species gave rise to new species and then went extinct as the modern Homo sapiens evolved. However, identifying the smaller populations that arose from that interbreeding, such as the unions between the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, has proved exceedingly difficult. This recent artificial intelligence discovery, pointing to a distinct ancestor of both Neanderthal and Denisovan origins, has allowed scientists to begin to understand how introgressions between ancient species caused diversions in the human genome that allowed the painstaking evolution into the first modern-day Homo sapiens to occur. Artificial intelligence was able to make this discovery because of its ability to identify locations of high divergence in the human genome, to indicate locations of potential introgressions between species, and further compare the genetic material at these locations, a task that would be almost impossibly painstaking otherwise. This is only the latest in a series of examples demonstrating the usefulness of artificial intelligence in genetic research because of the ability to utilize machine learning to accurately analyze and compare millions upon millions of pieces of ancient DNA. The DNA of modern humans, identifying patterns and connections that otherwise would have gone unnoticed. This has allowed scientists to begin the process of resolving some of the questions that have previously been left unanswered in order to piece together our ancient origins. Jeff Bezos unveils plans for Space Business Park. It seems that with every passing day, humanity looks to space more and more as a viable possibility for life and work, and space tourism company Blue Origin, owned by the world's richest man Jeff Bezos, announced that it has plans to partner with Sierra Space and Boeing to open a commercial space station called Orbital Reef within the next 10 years. That can be employed for a variety of different purposes, including filmmaking, research, or tourism, and includes a space hotel that can host up to 10 people. According to the press conference, the Orbital Reef will be over 9,700 square meters and is guaranteed to cost an astonishing amount, although exact numbers have yet to be released. This announcement comes on the tails of NASA's own announcement that they are looking for commercial proposals that would replace the aging International Space Station, which has fallen into disrepair. Although there is likely going to be stiff competition for the $400 million grant NASA will award to the winning proposal, it is unclear whether Bezos and Blue Origin are planning the Orbital Reef in order to pitch to NASA or as a competitor for whichever company wins the privatized contract for a commercial space station. Earlier this year, they were skipped over by NASA for a $2.9 billion contract that was awarded to SpaceX, owned by fellow billionaire Elon Musk, allowing the rival space billionaire to gain significant ground as a competitor in the race to privatize space. As it stands, Blue Origin has already gained significant media attention for its recent launch of owner Jeff Bezos and other civilians into space on the New Shepard rocket, as well as for accusations of concerns brought to light by former employees. Although this negative publicity is what caused them to lose out on the earlier contract with NASA, it appears that Bezos is moving forward with his space tourism schemes in spite of the negative publicity. With the announcement of the orbiting commercial business park, coming despite accusations that the billionaires are selfishly pouring their limitless wealth into vanity projects that battle for the monopolization of space, rather than assisting with the looming climate crisis down here on Earth. However, for now, all we can do is wait and see how the battle between NASA and the billionaires focused on the cosmos pans out. But what do you make of these recent scientific discoveries? The Planetary Defense System is used to track near-Earth objects. NASA established the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, and so far they have detected countless near-Earth objects. It's an uncomfortable truth that we're vulnerable within the universe. It's a fact that asteroids approach the Earth every year. There's never a guarantee of total safety, and it's just a matter of sheer luck as to whether we're directly hit. NASA has just sent their DART spacecraft up into space. DART stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and it's set to crash into an asteroid on purpose, all in the name of research. DART was sent up in a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Its mission will then take place in September of 2022, when NASA will deliberately route DART to crash into an asteroid, to test the asteroid deflection technology. Sensors and cameras in space, though, don't always detect things that can be easily explained. And every year, strange objects in space are caught on camera, usually leaving us with more questions than answers. This is what happened when Athena noticed a strange object flying close to the International Space Station. She was able to take some screenshots of the object, but couldn't explain what this large object was. She said the following: "Just 2 days ago, I was watching the live International Space Station cameras, and these are the photos that I was able to take. This thing was flying right in front of the ISS. It looks like a huge mothership." Athena goes on to mention that this isn't the first time that she's seen strange objects flying close to the International Space Station, but notes that this object was particularly big, and that it could easily be seen via the space station cameras. Often when strange objects are seen in front of the International Space Station cameras, They are normally small and passed off as things like space debris or camera anomalies, but this is one of the biggest objects that's been recorded flying in front of the ISS. Those who often watch the live cameras have said that seeing these anomalies is not uncommon, and what's strange about them is sometimes they hover around the ISS, almost as if inspecting it before flying off. NASA has said that these objects can easily be explained as things like space debris, noting that the area above our planet is littered with millions of objects, many of which make their way in front of the cameras and makes it look like something is flying past. Although this explanation is widely accepted by scientists and researchers, there's many who have said that this isn't what's being seen, and that, on a number of occasions when these objects fly in front of the cameras, the live feed shuts off. This has led some to say that NASA often switches off the live cameras because they don't want people seeing these objects, saying that the debris explanation would make sense if these cameras didn't shut off every time something flew in front of them. As with any discussion around mysterious flying aircrafts, there's some who hold on to the belief that these crafts are real, while skeptics have said that all people are seeing is space debris flying in front of the cameras. Another mysterious object that was seen close to the International Space Station was this one, with one user who saw it saying that it was in the shape of a triangle, and that it could be seen flying past the ISS. The lights didn't flash, and reminded some of the triangle crafts that's seen around the world. It's still up for debate what they are, with some saying that they are a type of hyper-advanced stealth aircraft, while others think they don't belong to us as they've been witnessed for over 70 years now, and all documents that have been released by the government have detailed that they're able to travel at extremely fast speeds, can avoid being detected on radar, and also have the ability to hover motionless. One user said the following about this object: "How can people say this is a piece of space debris? It's blatantly an aircraft that's close to the ISS. Some of these photographs don't look like crafts at all, and definitely go in the category of space debris. But this one doesn't. I'm sure this is a triangle-shaped aircraft." End quote. NASA is currently concentrating on near-Earth objects. They said the following on their website: "Near-Earth objects are asteroids and comets that orbit the Sun-like planets. But their orbits can bring them into Earth's neighborhood, within 30 million miles of Earth's orbit. For example, back in 2018, we saw more than 91 NEAMS hits of different asteroids of all sizes. The scary thing is, out of 91 asteroids that passed by us, only 30 of these asteroids were seen coming prior to their passing, and only 2 of those were discovered 1 year ahead of the NEAMS event. This means that for more than 89 of the asteroids nearly striking the Earth in 2018, only 2 of them could have been prevented with our current egg, showcasing just how threatening these large celestial bodies can be. Recently, an asteroid by the name of 2019 OK made headlines around the world. This wasn't because of its size, but rather because of its sudden appearance in our sky. We had no idea it was close to our planet until the day it passed by us. Again, this just shows how fragile we really are. Our best scientists and researchers had no idea this object was flying past until the last minute. And at that point, it may have been too late. As of right now, it's looking like Earth is safe from many of these celestial bodies. Regardless, although many of these asteroids are still millions